My presentation today is going to talk about sales. It's going to talk about creating a great customer experience. And most importantly, it's going to hopefully provide some great tips, techniques to further complement your business. And frankly, for a lot of you, it might just be reminding you of things that you already know, that you've done in the past. And sometimes we all just need to have somebody tell us that those are great things and we should keep doing them. So let's get started. So the agenda, I'm going to do a little bit more of an introduction on myself, talk about why does customer experience matter, talk about how we can measure it, look at 4 great steps to an excellent customer experience through sales, how to increase the customer experience as an owner or an entrepreneur, and then most importantly, how do we turn a great customer experience into sales? So again, as we go through this, if I don't see a lot of nods, I'll be disappointed. I'll be in the wrong room, right? Because most importantly, when it comes to having great customers, the writing's on the wall. Number one, it feels great. It's why we should be doing what we do, but also it can really help us grow our business. And we'll talk more today about sales and creating that great customer experience, but many other members of our team, followed by the presentation after me with Chris, is going to talk about how do we continue to develop that great customer experience through the installation process. And Bria will be talking later on, talking about marketing and how can we continue to just grow our business and leverage all of this. So from a standpoint of an introduction on myself, I've had the pleasure of working in the solar industry since 2002. Some of you might be laughing. Yes, I was 11 years old when I started working in solar. For some of you who've seen me do trainings before, yep, I've been telling that joke since I was 11 years old. Since then, I've had an opportunity to do a lot of different things in solar. I joined a small installation company doing residential sales in the early 2000s. We were doing everything. We were selling grid-tie battery backup. We were doing off-grid. We were doing wind. We were selling equipment. We were selling residential systems. And as our company continued to focus on grid-tie residential and commercial, I had the opportunity to sell hundreds of residential systems, small commercial, some government systems, and then I moved into a sales management role and then a training role. I had an opportunity to start working with AE doing training back in 2009, and I've had the opportunity to travel all across the country. Some of you I've seen in different locations all around the US doing trainings. My day job these days is I work for Sunrun. I'm on the sales operations team, and a lot of actually what I do is work behind the scenes on process and technology. But I get the opportunity to leverage a lot of my sales in-field experience now with a lot of members of our company behind the scenes and really represent sales as we continue to develop better products and services and tools. And I'm extremely confident that as we continue to develop these, we'll be able to leverage them and share them with our dealer network, because we're working on some pretty cool stuff, and I'm very confident it'll help you all as we continue to make it available to you. So why does customer experience matter? Number one, it feels good. For all of us who are, live in the towns that we work in, it feels great to walk into the grocery store and to have somebody say, hey, that's the solar guy. You guys are awesome. Thank you, right? It's so much of what we do. I mean, sure, it's a day job. Sure, we get paid to do it. But when we have people really proud about the services we offer, that matters a lot to us, and it also matters to our employees. Having worked in this industry for 12 plus years, I guess going on 13 years now, nothing's more exciting than when people are really thrilled about what we do. Because this is truly a unique service to many homeowners. They've never purchased a solar electric system before, and if they can be excited, they can help us spread the word. And so again, having great customers really makes it easier for us to do our jobs. So a good customer will tell 2 to 3 people. A bad customer, a bad experience will tell 10 to 15. For any of you who have traveled a long ways to be here, did anyone have any issues with the airlines or hotels or rental cars? Nobody? Okay, maybe in the back, all right. Has anyone here had that horrible experience and you promptly go on Expedia the next day and you do your best to capture that? I definitely have. Maybe that's why Yelp doesn't allow you to write reviews off your cell phone, because they know that literally people in the restaurant who haven't been seated for an hour are going to write a bad review right there before ever leaving, right? So one of the challenges we see with the whole customer experience is that when we do our jobs right, a couple people find out. When we don't do them right, unfortunately, people are more inclined to tell a lot more people about it because they're really upset. So we get that, right? So we want to deal with it head on. So as part of our sales process, let's not ignore the customer experience, and let's literally leverage everything we can to make a great experience before we ever show up at their home. So why does a good experience matter? Good reviews. Referrals are less competitive. They're a lower cost of acquisition. They have traditionally a much higher close rate from a sales standpoint. They help new customers find you. a lot of people are influenced by what their friends do. If anybody here who has a brother or a sister who's a mechanic, you probably call them and ask them about stuff when it comes to your car. I come from a family of contractors. When it's time to buy a power tool, well, now I already know what to buy, but I would always call up my older brother and I'd ask him, what do you use? How do you like it? If you could go back and buy a different tool, would you buy a different one? And again, when it comes back to that bad experience, I can't tell you how many people will say things like, oh, I don't buy that type of vehicle because my dad bought one and it was horrible and we'll never buy another one. Or there's a lot of people that are sold on certain brands of vehicles because that's what their families purchase and they've had that great experience. Again, nothing new when it comes to solar, but let's make sure that we leverage this and let's not be afraid to borrow things that other industries are doing to drive a great customer experience. Some of the ideas that I've seen that are really innovative have nothing to do with solar, but they're good. You know, there's companies now replacing windshields that are doing some pretty cool stuff. Some of the commercials I've seen where literally people are sending photos of who's going to show up. There's all kinds of things that can be done to improve the customer experience. Again, today's presentation from me is going to focus on sales, but most importantly, there's a lot of cool things that other companies are doing, so don't be afraid to borrow that stuff and leverage it in our industry. So, how do we measure customer experience? Well, for starters, we should just be able to ask our customers, right? We should be able to look them in the eye and ask them, how did it go? Are you happy with what we did? And if not, let's talk about it so we can figure out how to address it. But then there's a lot of stuff on the web, right? So 20 years ago, Angie's List, Yelp, none of that stuff mattered, right? Or sorry, it wasn't relevant, it didn't exist. Now, it's interesting to see how many people are in tune with web-based reviews. Has anybody here ever looked up a contractor based on web-based reviews? Hopefully more than that, right? Has anyone here ever looked up themselves to see the reviews you guys have? Okay, I have. Right? In fact, as part of preparing for this presentation, one of the things I did was Google a lot of solar companies looking at the reviews and also just looking at other highly regarded contractors, okay? When it comes to a lot of the material that I'm about to share with you, some of it's gleaned from personal experience. Some of it comes back to my days of being a sales manager and helping open up new markets. So I was able to be part of expanding REC Solar to the Northeast and opening up a market largely from scratch in New Jersey and being able to just start over in terms of creating great reviews, things like that. And I've also been able to help drive web-based customer review campaigns where we as a company said, we're happy with the reviews, but we just want to get more of them out there. So what can we do to specifically increase the number of web-based reviews we have? Because we see every single year more and more customers go online to do their research. One of the hardest things is that unfortunately, it looks like when you go to things like Yelp, it's kind of like the newspaper where they want to put the bad reviews up there, right? You can have 20 great reviews and one less positive one, and that less positive one always finds its way to the top. That's just the nature of the beast, and the best thing that we can do is to try and get as many positive reviews up there. But again, social media is a big one. So Angie's List, Yelp, any other websites that you see people using frequently, that your customers use, that you all like to use? So let's talk about 4 steps to an excellent customer experience through sales. Number 1, communication. Having been recently married, I'd also say it's key to having a happy marriage. So from that standpoint, 30% of the positive Yelp reviews regarding solar reference the sales and marketing team and their ability to respond quickly to their interest, okay? Has anyone here ever reached out to a company via online, heck, maybe even AE, and asked for something? And you're hoping you'd get a call back that day, and you don't. And you hope you get a call back that next day, and you don't. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, hey, did you still want to buy that? And you're like, yeah, I already did, from somebody else. And they're like, but we've got such a great product. And they're like, yeah, but I tried, and you didn't get back to me. So 30% of the positive reviews specifically speak to speed to lead and how quickly the company was able to respond to that lead. Doesn't mean that you call them up and you say, I'll be at your house in 20 minutes to conduct a full home analysis and provide a detailed proposal same day. Not at all. But simply just calling to let them know, hey, thanks. We got your email. Thanks for visiting our website. Or so-and-so told us that you asked about this. Or so-and-so referred you. I can't tell you how many customers have told me things like, Gabe, I called you and 2 other solar companies, and you were the only one to call me back that same day. And I smile and I say, well, that's because we're really looking forward to earning your business. You don't even have to call the other guys back. Don't worry about it. 20% of the negative reviews reference a company not calling them back. There's a quote on here that I thought was pretty interesting. But one of the challenges that I see with a lot of people in the solar industry doing sales is that we didn't inherently come from a sales background, okay? So I actually studied forestry in school. I never studied sales. I didn't have a lot of sales jobs before joining the solar industry. My older brother is a contractor. He's a great contractor, but I'd say he's not a great salesman. Lucky for him, he does all of his business through referrals. But again, he's not a great salesman. And he's made a point of telling me, I don't want to be a great salesman. I said, I know, I get it, right? Some used car salesmen, guys, ruin the sales industry for all of us, okay? But there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a great salesman, or even better, with not traditionally being a salesman or a woman, or being a salesman or woman, but still wanting to leverage a lot of these techniques to become better at sales, right? So I used to joke with people and I'd say, I'm not a salesman either, right? I'm just a really passionate person who works in solar. But again, don't be afraid to leverage very fundamental things when it comes to becoming better at sales, because it will absolutely pay off. And especially as you continue to work in industries and markets that get more competitive, nothing's worse than the company who's not very good at installations but great at sales taking all the customers, because we do ourselves a disservice when we let somebody else who's not as competent as we are take that customer off the market, because they're not going to have a great experience with solar. So you guys owe it to yourselves to get better at sales to help people out. So from that standpoint, communication's a big one, and this is so easy. It just comes to being, it's just really about being responsive. Number 2, organization and scheduling. I would say some of the best things that I ever did was get serious about organization and scheduling from a professional standpoint, and I have to do this on a regular basis. One of the key things that my boss told me at the end of 2014 was, you're great, we love you, you're passionate, you add all this value, and if you could spend 10% more time on your organization and your ability to effectively communicate and schedule all the different projects you're working on, you would see your net worth increase by 20, 30%, no problem. But what I have to do is literally spend the time and dedicate it. So every week I spend time organizing my calendar. Nothing's more frustrating than hearing that you did this great job of earning a customer's goodwill, they give you a referral, and your sales rep forgets the appointment. Has anybody here ever had a customer say your rep didn't show up or they were late? Okay, maybe you guys don't want to raise your hands. It's okay. It's happened to me, right? I've missed appointments before. I've been horrendously late to appointments. And nothing is more frustrating than when the customer almost doesn't even want to let me in the door because I did a bad job of that, right? So I've definitely made a lot of progress from that standpoint. And I've also seen a lot of customers make decisions based on our ability to be organized, be efficient. Before we ever even talk about price, they're basing a lot of their opinion on us based on the way that we run the appointment, or frankly even show up on time. So 20% of positive Yelp reviews reference the sales rep being organized, professional, on time for their follow-up, and 32% talk about reps missing appointments, being delayed, and then most importantly, this is my favorite one, not feeling valued as a customer. Interesting company, apparently not all salespeople want to sell, okay? So in my years of being a sales manager, I've hired a lot of people. I've also had to let a lot of people go. That's just part of being in business, okay? One of the most frustrating things that I ever saw was that after I would terminate a sales rep, I would then go through their sales pipeline. I would call up every single person that they had talked to in the last 30 days because I wanted to know what was going on, right? Maybe we could salvage the deal. I literally would pick up deals. Customers would say, we're ready to move forward. Neil just never called me back. And I mean, obviously grimacing as I'm talking to them, say, well, the good news is you're talking to the manager. We're definitely going to be able to help you out. So why don't we start over with, I've got all the proposals that Neil sent over. Let's talk about the right solution. Let's help you get this figured out. We'll get the paperwork signed, get you on the schedule, and get the solar on your roof. But nothing was more frustrating than the fact that I had just terminated somebody. I had put them on a performance plan before I terminated them. I had told them, your job is to bring in revenue, and they had sales out there waiting simply because they didn't follow up, right? So while this might sound like an example that isn't very relevant to some of you, I guarantee right now, out of a room this size, all of you, or out of this group, there are literally customers ready to move forward that just need to be touched. And when we talk about the best way to do this, be organized, right? Now, there's a lot of different tools out there. You can leverage tools like Salesforce, highly sophisticated CRM tools, you can just use Outlook. You can schedule a reminder to follow up with that customer. You can establish with you and your sales team, what we'd call SLAs, service level agreements with each other, right? If we deliver a proposal, we're going to follow up within 48 hours to just check in. And then if they say they still need more time, we're going to follow up in 6 days just to check in. It's okay to have a completely fluid level of follow-up based on the customer. Some customers will resent you if you call them in 24 hours after the appointment. Other customers really appreciate it. But one of the best things you can do as part of your sales process is to make sure that you and your team are having that communication, and then you're also having that communication with the customer, right? One of the things that I always enjoy the most, when I was with a customer, if they weren't ready to move forward on that first sale, I'd say, fantastic. Let's talk about the next steps, because I'm looking forward to earning your business, and I also don't want you to feel like this is any more pressure than it needs to be. And they'd say, okay, how about I call you in a week? I'd say, great. Today's the 7th. I'll call you on the 15th if I haven't heard back, and I'll send you an email just recapping our conversation, including some other additional information. And if there's anything you want to ask more questions about, don't hesitate to call or email me. Then if I didn't hear anything from them, I'd call them promptly on the 15th, and we'd follow up. But most importantly, I left every appointment having a clear expectation of when I was going to follow up. If they said, don't worry, we'll call you, great. Whenever you're going to call me, I'll follow up if I haven't heard from you by then. Because then it was really easy for me to go back and to put that into my tool. If I was using Outlook, schedule a reminder, call Dale if I haven't heard back on the 15th. It's that simple, right? But again, leveraging that level of organization and scheduling is really important to all of us as customers. All right, number 3, set correct expectations of the sales process. Has anybody here ever had a member of their sales team come back and say, hey, this is great, the guy's ready to move forward. We just need to show up tomorrow, do a full layout, do a whole electrical single line diagram, and give him a really detailed proposal. And he's expecting it tomorrow morning. And you're like, we can't do that in that period of time. And they're like, but he's going to be so upset. I've made that mistake before, again, if nobody wants to raise their hand, right? But it's happened, right? It does happen all the time. And one of the worst things we can do is set incorrect expectations that we know we can't meet or achieve. The best thing for us to do, of course, is set expectations that we can meet and achieve. So whatever you do, be it you or members of your sales team, don't be afraid to just review how long it takes to do something. Let's say it's create a proposal. Maybe it's go out and do a site visit. Whatever it is, arm yourselves and your sales teams with that information so they can set that right expectation. And then if you can meet or exceed it, that's great. But nothing's worse than promising a customer you're going to call them back in 24 hours if you know you can't, because at that 25th hour, you've now lost points with them. And I don't blame them, because you set an expectation that you can't meet or exceed. All right, next, the consultative approach. So people love to buy, but they hate to be sold to. Maybe this goes back to why people always resent salespeople, right? Because they feel like they're getting pressured to do something. I get that. My wife and I, we bought a Toyota Scion, okay? I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Scion sales approach. So my wife had done all the research. She figures out that the Scion's the car for her. So I'm like, that's great, but I want to handle the negotiation, right? I pride myself on being somebody, I like to negotiate, I like sales. I know what it's like to have a quota. I know what it's like to be close to the end of the month, and I can imagine that these sales reps are probably going to be in more of a position to negotiate. You know, I'm willing to show up and to offer cash or different things to just move the needle, right? So we show up. She's like, this is the one I want. Everything is great. And I say, great. Now let's talk about the numbers. And he's like, oh, no, it's set pricing. I said, nothing's set pricing. Like, that's my line. Good line. Now let's really talk about the numbers, right? He's like, no, it doesn't work that way. I'm like, ready for the next one. I finally want to be like, hey, man, I'm in sales too. This stuff always is negotiable, right? Maybe I'm talking to the wrong guy. Maybe I should talk to the manager. And he's like, no. With Scion, Toyota decided to take a different approach. They decided that this product was being marketed towards a younger generation that was going to Google everything, that had no interest or no affiliation to any local dealer. And the second they found the car they wanted, they'd get online, they'd shop the lowest price, and they would completely screw up the traditional sales process. So it's a flat rate. You can buy it here. You can buy it from a different dealer. It's all set. There's no ups, we can't mark it up. We can't undercut each other, all this kind of stuff. It's just a very, very straightforward sales approach. I was pleased because, I was like, okay, give me a second. So of course I get on my phone and I Google it, right? And it was true, right? This is really Scion's sales approach. The interesting thing about it, though, is it works for them. It doesn't work in our business, right? But most importantly, customers like the idea of knowing they're getting a good deal, that they have options, and that they are not getting pressure to do something. So for us, even though I wasn't able to have a very consultative sales process with purchasing the Scion, we were very pleased with the car and we were pleased with the pricing, right? But when it comes back to what we do in our industry, this is a very custom thing, right? Is it a 4 kilowatt system? Is it a 6 kilowatt system? Grid tie, are we doing battery backup? What batteries should we use? What are the different options? What bells and whistles do the customers want? What I always like to tell people is, we'll give you as many quotes as you look at. Everybody should look at 3 quotes. I can give you 3 quotes, right? Because what I hate people to say is, Gabe, this is great, but I now need to go get 2 more quotes, because that's what we do every time. So I'd rather give them the 3 quotes. You want to look at grid tie? Great, I'll give you a proposal for a 4, a 6, and an 8 kilowatt system, right? Now, that doesn't mean that every customer won't want to shop it a little bit, but creating a consultative approach in your own strategy is going to make them less inclined to feel like they need to go out to somebody else and get a competing bid. So the things I like to do, number 1, make sure we talk about options. And if they're not asking us questions, we're not doing a good enough job of listening, because many of our consumers have never bought solar before, right? And maybe some of you guys have repeat customers, but a lot of our customers do have a lot of questions. So listen to them, give them options. Talk to them about whatever solution it is that we're going to provide. And then one of the things that I would always leverage as part of my sales process is I would take notes during the process. And I would show them my notes, right? Okay, so based on what you've described, this is the best solution that we can offer for this exact criteria that you've laid out. And if they say this isn't what I want, okay, maybe I did a bad job of understanding your criteria. Let's go back to that, and then let's design the right system. Because what I wasn't going to do was let a customer tell me, I don't like your product, it's not for me, get out of here, right? Because if they were going to say that, they should have said that at the very beginning of the sales process. Instead, what I like to do is leverage their criteria as being why I chose this solution. And if it's not something they want, let's go back to the drawing board and let's get right back to what that ideal solution is. If they say this is too expensive, okay. Let's go back and let's talk about what your goals are in terms of amount of your bill that we're offsetting, and also what your budget is, and let's design the right solution. Does anyone here like the consultative sales approach? You guys probably do it at your own businesses, okay? Okay, so from a standpoint of recapping, right? Communication, speed to lead, calling new leads back immediately. Let's talk about this one. Who here does this at their business? Okay? Who here tries to do this at their business? And sometimes it's tough. I get it, right? One of the hardest things is when you have a very small group of people, and sometimes you don't always trust everybody to call that lead back because you're kind of afraid of what they're going to say, right? I'm going to pick on my buddy Rob back here, right? So Rob's with Schneider. Rob, I know, is the most responsive person ever when it comes to sales stuff. But also the challenge is that Rob might have other members of his team that don't have as much expertise as he does. So if you call him, even though he wants you to get a response immediately, he may not farm it off to somebody on his team to call you back. It's really not that hard, right? If somebody sends you an email on a Saturday and they say, hey, I'm really interested in solar, can you call me? We would love to follow up. We'll be able to call you first thing Monday morning. Even if that's not the exact answer that they want, what they really want you is to call them on Saturday afternoon, okay? But still, just that email alone makes them feel that much better than the fact that they don't know if anyone read the email or if they're never gonna get a call back, okay? Texting works so well. Some of you right now are probably getting phone calls from employees or customers, and the text message sounds like this. Hey, in the middle of a meeting, I'll call you back as soon as possible, probably right around 4:15, or whatever that is. Again, that's not the preferred answer, but it's a heck of a lot better than just getting somebody's voicemail, right? Okay, so one of the things that we used to do in our office was when a lead would come in, we would have a member of the team as quickly as possible follow up and let them know that an expert member of our team would be available later that day or the following morning. But whatever it is, we were doing our best to make contact as quickly as possible, okay? The reason was, and I've done this and I'm sure a lot of you have as well, sometimes when you're looking for a service, you will start calling through the phone book until you reach somebody. Has anybody done that one? Yeah. Why? Because you want to get some kind of instant feedback, right? So if you call a company and they say, yes, a member of our team can call you back later this afternoon, you feel a little bit, there's some gratification there. You're not so in such a hurry to just call 4 more companies, right? Especially if you know you're going to have phone calls coming in later that day. So as quickly as possible, leveraging speed to lead. Has anybody here ever purchased third-party leads or bought leads online? Just one? Couple? All right. So when we look at speed to lead, it's never as important as it is when you're purchasing leads. Because have you ever called that lead the next day and they're like, oh, you're the 4th solar guy to call me? I've done it, right? It's happened to me, and it's happened to me enough to where when we look at how do we best leverage third-party leads, we'd rather not buy them if we can't get somebody on the phone to call them within 24 hours, because we see a huge, huge impact in the closing percentage of our ability to turn that lead into a sale if we're not getting back to them very quickly, right? So especially if you're doing those third-party leads, being able to have somebody respond immediately really adds to the process, especially when that company selling you the lead is also selling it to 4 other companies. And if you're the 4th or 5th solar company, you know what they'll tell you? It's okay, we already got 3 phone calls. We're not interested. I've had people tell me that. And I'm like, but you don't understand. I bought the lead. And actually, what they usually say is, I didn't realize this company was going to sell my info to so many people. When you're the first person calling them, they're like, this is great. This is exactly what I wanted. The 4th company, they're ready to yell at you, right? And it all comes to that speed to lead, being in that pole position. You want to be first. Next, the organization and the scheduling side. So I know it's pretty old school, right? But having that whiteboard, blocking out every appointment for the week, making sure that your sales team is on it, making sure that your sales team is doing things like giving them a phone call the day before to remind them of the appointment, sending them a text message to say, we're very excited to come out, we'll be there at 2 o'clock, please have your electricity bill ready, or whatever information you need. But doing that light touch follow-up in advance of the appointment is a great way to, number 1, make sure your customers are prepared, 2, make sure that they know that you're prepared and organized, and 3, set the expectation with your sales reps that these leads are like gold, treat them as such. So who here has a sales team with more than, let's say, 3 people on it? Okay? It can be, frankly, guys, it can be challenging to manage their pipelines if you're always having to look into a black box. If you ask them, hey, how many deals are you going to get this week or this month? And they're like, well, there's the lady I talked to here, and there's this. It gets really complicated. It's a lot easier if you have, again, if you have a whiteboard, or you can leverage Outlook, or you can leverage a lot of different tools to visually see what their pipelines are, what their appointments are. It just makes it easier to drive that level of accountability, especially if you have turnover on your sales team. Maybe somebody gets sick. You can instantly see where that appointment is so you can make sure that somebody covers it, okay? Setting correct expectations. One of the easiest ways to do this is to sit down with you and your sales team to look at what you all do as a sales team, right? Prepare proposals, call customers back, whatever it might be, and just map it out. Put it in writing. Set the expectation, hey, when a lead comes in, we should be calling them same day at the minimum, and if it's after 6 or 7 o'clock at night, we're going to send them an email and follow up first thing in the morning, okay? When it comes to creating a proposal, if we tell somebody we're going to create a proposal, we do it, right? And if we go out and we run a sales call, we set the expectation that we'll be, following up within 48 hours. If we're going to provide a revised proposal, maybe we don't say 24 hours if we know they need to talk to other people in the office. It's better to set that expectation of 48 hours to just have it be met. Because the worst thing we can do is, again, set an expectation that we don't need to and then not follow through on it. From a standpoint of the consultative approach, again, we don't have enough time to go into the entire sales process. I've done past trainings on different types of sales processes. There's the 6-step approach, the 8-step approach. For some of you who've read books on sales, I've seen people say we've got our magic 4-step process to sales. I included just a basic 6-step outline as part of the appendix to this presentation. But the reality is you don't have to be an expert in sales. You don't have to have ever done a sales training class or sold professionally or had formal sales training to have a consultative approach. Instead, just be perceptive. Talk to your customer. Make sure that they're aware that maybe not the proposal you're giving them is the only one that you have the ability to offer. If they're crossing their arms and they don't like what you're putting down, back up. Say, hey, this is just one example of what we could do. It's not the only option. That's what's great about working with a company like us. We have options. Let's talk about them because you want them to look within you and your company as opposed to going elsewhere for those options. So how do we increase our Yelp revenues? So who here feels like they have happy customers? Everyone's hands should be going up, right? Who here feels like they wish more of their happy customers would go on Yelp and Angie's List in the web to tell everyone about it? All the hands should be up, right? One of the biggest frustrations I had was developing great customers, having everybody thrilled, and then I'd see them a month later. They'd be like, Gabe, I'm so happy. Everything's been great. Awesome. Did you tell any of your neighbors about us? Oh, no. No, I don't really talk to my neighbors. Okay. You tell any of your friends about us? Not yet. Well, why not? They're like, well, I mean, you know how it is. I just got busy. And I'd say, okay, I totally get that. And I appreciate you, number one, just telling me the truth, right? But how do we change this? And some people they're very personable. They have no problem knocking on their neighbor's door saying, you really got to talk to these solar guys. They're awesome, okay? But for every one customer like that, there's 10 other ones who simply don't want to do that. They either, A, don't know their neighbors, they don't want to go meet their neighbors, they're just not comfortable doing it, and also, they don't have the ability or time to get out there and do that. But what they can do is they can write a really nice review on Yelp at 8 o'clock at night when they're sitting on the couch on their laptop and they're hanging with their kids and they're doing homework. They can definitely do that, right? So one of the key things that I would encourage you to do is, number one, make a list of all those happy customers that when you go back home, and if they see you in the store, they're going to wave and smile, and ask them to write you a great Yelp review. Or better yet, look for if they've ever written you a review via email, they sent you a letter. When I did this Yelp campaign, the first thing we did was we looked at all the positive reviews we'd gotten, right? Email, people were always sending us emails. They were writing notes. They were writing nice things and giving it to our electrician when they're out there. We typed it up. We emailed it back to him with a link to our Yelp page, and we said, hey, thank you so much for writing this great review. We would love it if you would post this on our Yelp page. Here's the link, and if you've never used Yelp, please recommend your 2 favorite local restaurants. Because if anyone knows anything about Yelp and the way they prioritize stuff, if you just write one review, it doesn't go very far. But if you've written multiple reviews, it goes a long ways, okay? So we would literally coach them to do this. We definitely were not putting words in their mouth, but we were doing everything that we could to get those same people who are already comfortable saying positive things about us and just putting it on those reviews, okay? Does anybody like that idea? Anybody willing to try that one when they go home? Cool. Again, when we look at something like Yelp, I don't know if Yelp understood when they were coming out as a company how big of an impact they would have on so many people within the service industry, right? I mean, it's amazing at how some companies literally can be made or broken by their Yelp reviews, which is really, it's challenging. And what's really challenging is being a very passionate member of this industry, loving to help our customers out. Guys, I've sold hundreds and hundreds of customer systems. There are some customers that are just never going to be happy in life, right? Now, I should have found this out before we ever did the install, because if I would have asked them, hey, have you ever worked with a contractor you liked? They'd probably say, absolutely not. Never liked a single one, right? And they definitely did a good job after the installation of telling me every single thing we ever did wrong. We'd say, okay, I'm really disappointed. I even had one guy's wife pull me aside and she's like, you're great. Bob does this to everybody. I was like, do you want to write the review then for us? Right? Because it was frustrating, because I take this stuff so personally. And what did I find out afterwards? He was just somebody who made a point of always doing that, right? That was Bob. That was his style. It was like, we could do everything great, and he's like, you didn't do it fast enough, okay? It didn't matter what we were going to do. He just wasn't going to be as receptive to us. But again, from talking to his wife, he's like that with everybody. So what I would try and do is I try and drown out that one review of Bob's. Now, fortunately for us, Bob also isn't super avid on the web, so he didn't make a point of putting this in writing. He just told it to my face. But for every person who's like that out there, let's not be afraid to leverage this stuff. And also, when you talk to your customers, don't take away from the fact that they probably did research online also. So especially if somebody says, I found you online, great. Well, my goal is to earn your business. And then to take it one step further. after we earn your business and you're a really happy customer, I'd really like you to go online and to write reviews about us, because if that was clearly a tool that you leveraged to help you in the sales process, I think other people will as well. Who here works and lives in a market where solar is not very common, where a lot of people aren't doing solar? Okay? It's all over the place, right? And the web can be one of the best tools to do this. All right, so again, checking with members of your team to see who's already written happy reviews. If they've already provided this feedback, putting it in writing, sending them a link to the Yelp page, and then also doing check-ins. So if it's a grid-tie battery backup system, call them after that first power outage and ask them how it worked. They're like, it's great. All the neighbors came over. I was the only one on the block with the lights on. Cool. Would you mind writing a review and talking about this experience? And they're like, yeah, but Gabe, you did the system a year ago. I know. And I'd love for you to write and say, tell us the story, right? We installed the system a year ago. It really didn't have a chance to test it out fully until there was a power outage, and then all the neighbors came over, and you're really happy about it. But following up with your customers 90 days after the installation, if you're selling a grid tie, just a grid tie system, that's very likely going to be that first month's bill may not be a full bill, so they really won't see the impact of solar in terms of their financial savings until easily the second or the third month. Maybe you install the system in the winter time and they won't really see the benefit till the spring or the summer. So follow up with these customers and ask them how it is. You know, I remember one time trying to close a sale, and the guy was a 30-year sales professional. And he said, I'd like a list of references. And I said, absolutely. And he said, but here's what I want. I want a reference who was recently installed. I want a reference who's had their system for 2 years. And I want a reference for a customer who's had their system for 4 years. And I was like, but I've got this great reference sheet with me. And he's like, yeah, I know. And that's probably your cherry-picked, happy customers that will only say great things about you. I get that. I've got the same one. So can you provide references immediately 2 years, 4 years out? And I said, yes, I can. And that was something that was even more impactful and valuable, because for everybody who works in sales, a lot of us, when we have our reference lists, what do? We pick our favorite customers that love us and will only say great things about us. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. Does anyone here have reference lists that they've used before and include as part of the sales process? Okay. Has anyone, so here's a technique that me and members of the team used to do. We take it one step further. We would go to Yelp and we would print out the reviews from Yelp about what nice things people had to say about us, and we'd include it as part of our proposal. And then we also knew which of our competitors had bad reviews, and we'd say, look, you're gonna love working with us, right? Call our grandmothers, they love us, right? But if you don't wanna go that far, and maybe you wanna get a third-party opinion, you should really check us out on Yelp. Here's the printout of our reviews. We implore you to go to our website, but we also really encourage you to go to our competitors, because you will find there's a real difference in the way that we help our customers. And nothing against these guys, and I'm sure they're great folks, but they're not us, and they have a different approach to their business. Ours is very customer-centric. And so we would leverage those Yelp reviews as part of the sales process. And frankly, if you're doing trade show events, different things like that, printing that stuff out and having it handy is just a great way to leverage as part of the sales process. And it doesn't mean you have to format your own little reference list. You can just leverage the stuff that's already there. Just go to print screen, and then at the bottom, make sure people understand. You put in big letters, visit our Yelp page and read these for yourself. So how do we turn a great customer experience into revenue? Number one, ask for referrals. Who here asks for referrals as part of their sales process? Okay, good. Why? Why do you guys do it? To make sales, okay? So a lot of people will ask for referrals from customers they sell. If I went on a sales call and I knew solar wasn't right for them, then I really had to ask them for referrals, right? Because otherwise it would be a complete waste of my time. So if 20 minutes into the call we agree that they're never gonna cut this massive redwood tree or oak tree in front of their house, their roof is facing the wrong direction, they've got this crazy, shake roof, clay tile roof, whatever it might be, that they didn't know what it was, and that's why they told me it was comp shingle when we spoke on the phone, right? Whatever it is, I realize this appointment's not going anywhere. I'll say, great. Unfortunately, solar's not right for you, but we have an awesome referral program. So let's talk about which of your neighbors or friends or family could take advantage of this. let's take down their information right now. And because we can still help save you money on your electric bill or literally pay you for these referrals. I used to tell people till I was blue in the face, we are a for-profit solar company. We spend money on marketing. We would much rather pay you to help us grow our business through referrals than invest in things like Clear Channel Radio, okay? So, we've got a great referral program. For example, for every person whose information you give us, if it goes to sale, we will give you a $200 gift certificate to Cabela's, Costco, Home Depot, a Visa gift card. Doesn't matter, right? The fact that they can, even though they can't go solar, they can still save money on their bill by leveraging friends or family who might be a good fit, at least now makes that appointment a good use of my time, okay? I want to ask my happy customers about how we can better our marketing and ask for their ideas. Has anyone here ever had a customer tell them, you know what I think you guys should do to grow your business? You guys ever heard that? I have. You know what I do? I listen. And it doesn't matter how crazy the idea is, I say that's awesome. Here's something else that I'd like you to help me with too. How about you help me with referrals? Because usually those are the folks that are a little bit more aggressive or just conversational, okay? Encourage your potential customers to read the positive reviews and also encourage your customers to write the reviews by doing things like putting at the bottom of your email tagline, visit us on Yelp. So I've got a friend in sales, and at the bottom of his email signature, there's a little hyperlink, okay? And it says, visit us on Yelp and read our fantastic customer reviews. So every time he emails a customer, they see that over and over and over again. You'd be surprised at how some of these techniques, you do it once, you put it on your email signature, you never really think about it, and then when you go and you earn that customer's business, they'll say things like, yeah, it was really helpful reading your reviews on Yelp. Or if anyone's ever had a customer tell them, I couldn't find you guys on Yelp, make it easy. Put it at the bottom, right? Maybe when you're doing a customer follow-up, continue to encourage them to visit. Now, has anyone, so again, I continue to use the whole Yelp platform as something that's pretty common. Does anyone here have a specific thing like Angie's List or another local review website that's commonly used in your markets? What's that? Okay, and people use that a lot? Seems to be. So here's what I would do. If you're on solar reviews, make sure you put at the bottom of your email signature, visit us on solar reviews, right? Because the average customer may have no idea, but there's all these great things that have been said about you there. So it's okay to steer people towards that. When we would set appointments, we would always want to give a customer a confirmation email. Dear Jane Doe, we're very excited to see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Please have a copy of your electric bill handy. And prior to us arriving, we think you'll really enjoy reading more about us. Visit us on Yelp, Angie's List, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe I link a local newspaper article about our company, whatever it is, but I'm truly giving them pre-reading, so by the time I show up, they're already off to a great start. Any questions or comments about that? Okay. So, from that standpoint, conclusion, happy employees make happy customers. One of the best things you can do to improve the sales experience is to make sure that your sales team is doing really, really good, okay? I've got friends who are sales managers, and every single day, they do a required 5-minute check-in with their sales team. Every single morning, 5-minute check-in. They read off something inspirational. Maybe they tell a great joke, but whatever they do everything they can to get their team's enthusiasm and momentum and attitude in the right direction. Because the worst thing you can ever do is have a sales rep who doesn't believe in your product or is just having a bad day, because I guarantee it'll rub off. It'll rub off on your customers, and it just translates through the whole process. And then most importantly, believe in what you do. Be a great example to this stuff. And for everybody who is going to go back and ask their sales reps to go out and get some positive customer reviews and have it put on Yelp, lead by example, right? Literally, hit the phones first, call 3 of your customers, send them the email, type up that great thank you letter that they wrote you 6 months ago that you guys have tacked up in the office, and ask them to put this stuff on Yelp for you. And then print out those reviews and share it with your reps. But one of the most frustrating things that I saw when my sales manager would ask me to do things that I didn't think he could do himself or wasn't willing to do. But when he would show up and say, guess what? Not only am I going to do this, but I did it yesterday, and I called these customers. I got 3 referrals out of it. I got leads by asking people about Yelp, and now we have 2 new Yelp listings. And then me being a very competitive person, I was like, well, I'm guaranteed going to do better than you within 24 hours, and the game would begin. But most importantly, enjoy this stuff. It's fun. It's great. We get to really influence a lot of the customer interaction, and not a single thing that I reviewed here costs us any money. Outside of a whiteboard or using some other tool to stay organized, there's nothing that we see here that's going to double or triple our cost of sales. Instead, it's going to make us a lot more money because we'll be that much more effective in closing those deals. So on that note, guys, thank you very much. We're all done for today.